have to or something. Integrity is a foreign concept to most people. Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I think that I've often um, I think that what ends up happening is that people have an event. In philosophy, the concept of event, it means something that happens and breaks through the everydayness of your life. So your life has a certain pattern and a certain quotidian character of uh, a certain everydayness, and that's broken through by what in philosophy we call events. You know, um, there are moments that force you to rethink everything and that create an opening for you to question things that were previously unquestioned. There are openings that allow for new questions to be asked, and you can decide to not ask them and move forward, and or you can decide to be faithful, to have a certain fidelity to the event, and to continue pursuing answers to the questions that the event arose in your minds. I think that's how people get radicalized. Something happens to you at the personal level that forces you to think. And once you reflect, eventually, if you're lucky, you find out that a lot of people have reflected on these issues systematically. And you can then begin to read some literature and eventually you become a Marxist Leninist, a communist, and you dedicate your life to the struggle. But for me, it was my mother having my little sister developing fibromes within her body. The doctor telling her like, "Yo, these can blow up any moment. You need this. You need these operated." And what did she do? Did she get the operation? No. Um, she decided that it was better for her to avoid the debt that would put on her family and risk death than get the operation. And the friends that we had and the family members who they spent all their time lambasting Cuba, criticizing Cuba, totalitarian, political prisoners, blah blah blah, whatever the fuck. They were the first ones to tell my mom, "Go to Cuba and get the operation. It'll be free there." So I'm going through my everyday life, not reflecting on anything related to politics, and you see this and you're like, "What the fuck is going on here?" That develops certain questions, and those questions create the conditions for other questions to be developed. So I would go to the beach, because I lived most of my life in South Florida, Hialeah, for those that know. You go to the beach, and what do you see in the beach? You see massive fucking skyscrapers in downtown Miami, and you look down, it's filled with homeless. And I wasn't too bright at 9, 10, 11 years old, but I realized that the vast majority of those rooms were unoccupied, and it just wouldn't make sense. Why are there people living in the streets when right fucking next to them there's empty apartments? That's a question I couldn't answer. I couldn't answer that at 12 years old. I began to answer it with the Bernie movement, where he starts talking about the role of private insurance and profit and all these different things. Eventually, I'm able to study Marxism, and I end up where I am now. But it was my material conditions that led me into that process of questioning that eventually led me to be a communist and to have these hardened principles that function as daily categorical imperatives, as duties that I must do. If not, I can't live with myself. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I wasn't speaking out against the genocide of the Palestinian people. I just couldn't. But I got to this point thanks to an event. Um, and I think because of the changing material conditions in the US, because of the deterioration of the living standard, a lot more people are having those events in their everyday life. That's why the ruling class wants to censor us. That's why the ruling class wants to censor people like us, because we provide the potential for them to answer those questions that arise in those events that occur and break the everydayness of their lives. But enough ranting. Let me go to